Hello and welcome back to Rev Real Estate School. I'm your host, Michael Montgomery, and today we're talking about how you can set up your real estate CRM for success. Now, when it comes to a real estate CRM, most of the time what agents do is they overcomplicate it. They try to build in all of these automations, they try to build in all of these templates, when in fact, setting up your real estate CRM is actually quite a bit more simple than we make it out to be. Here is the issue with most CRMs. We open them up, we have great intentions of keeping them up to date. However, we do not keep them up to date over time. Why is that? Well, if you think about the Eisenhower Matrix, and the Eisenhower Matrix basically separates things into 4 quadrants. And typically as real estate agents, we're focusing on this important and urgent quadrant, when in fact the CRM sits more under the important but not urgent. And this is actually the most important quadrant whenever you are thinking about real estate. When you're focusing on important but not urgent, those tend to be activities that will drive your business forward. Now, CRM organization falls into that category. So we need to dedicate time every single day to keeping our database up to date. You will thank yourself for years to come when you have this set up well. And when you don't, it really just ends up being a dumping ground for your clients and there's no organization to it. And the longer we wait, the more challenging it becomes to actually clean it up. So what we're going to discuss today is a strategy for you to set up your real estate CRM, regardless of the CRM that you are using. And then also, how do we interact with people in different buckets of our CRM? So we're going to interact with a client who's a lead quite a bit differently than a client who's actively out looking for a home. We're also going to touch on how frequently you should reach out to these people and to what extent we should use automation. So let's dive in. Typically, the main question that we have is for leads that come into our pipeline, how do we organize them from the lead stage to when they actually become active? Now, the way that we organize them is using the acronym LOPA. And so LOPA are 4 different stages bringing you from lead to active client and how you can think about each individual client in these stages. So first off, the L for LOPA is lead. So who is a lead? A lead is somebody who's registered on my website, but we haven't had one-to-one back and forth communication. So maybe they've registered, they've even maybe reached out for a showing request, but we actually haven't had a conversation. And so in this stage, I want to ensure that I'm staying in touch with them. But that being said, I don't want to spend all of my time on these folks. So I really rely on automation in the lead stage. Once they've actually responded to me, I will move them out of this stage. But in the lead stage, they are receiving a drip campaign from me. Now, this drip campaign tends to be a 30-day drip campaign followed by a year-long drip campaign. So the 30-day drip campaign is more frequent, and I'm really trying to get them to respond. What I'm trying to do here is to get them to a yes or get them to a no. Now, the reason why I say that is if they say yes, as in they want to see a property, or yes, they'd like to jump on a call and to learn more, great. Then I can start to qualify them. If, however, they respond and say they're not interested, then great, no problem whatsoever. I do not have to focus my time on them. So really what I'm looking for at the lead stage is just an interaction. I'm looking for them to respond to one of my messages. So my drip campaigns tend to be very focused on trying to generate a response. And again, I'm really leaning into automation here. Drip email campaigns, automated text messages, basically trying to generate that response. So what happens after the lead stage? Well, then they move into an opportunity. So this is when they have actually responded to me. So a lot of people will actually stay in the opportunity stage. And in this stage, they haven't decided if they are moving for sure yet. It can be somebody who has responded to one of my automated drips. It could also be a past client or somebody in my sphere of influence or my SOI. These people that are in my sphere of influence or a past client, it could also be that they don't even know they're moving yet. So a few lessons ago, we talked about the 10 Ds, and the 10 Ds are reasons why people move. So these are diamonds, so they're getting married, or diapers, they're having kids. And so if I see one of these 10 Ds, I may move this person into an opportunity because they may be looking to move, but they don't even know it yet. And so really what I want to do at this stage is I want them to make a decision on if they're buying or selling or not. And so since we have had a conversation, there's no drip campaigns here. There's no automation. Instead, I'm staying in touch with them and my reminders are monthly. So monthly at least, and this is at a minimum, I want to be reaching out to them and seeing if they need anything. And the main focus here is demonstrating value. So I'm trying to help them get to a decision on if they want to buy or sell. I'm really not trying to sell them on myself, but when I'm demonstrating value and I'm sending them properties that may match their criteria, I'm making introductions to other third parties. I'm helping them with market data. What I'm actually doing here is I am selling myself, but I'm doing so by way of providing a ton of value. This is the opportunity stage. And it's important to understand that we are not really leaning into automation here. Yes, they may be on your email newsletter list, so they're getting that automated, but you're not actually automating the follow-up. This is a one-to-one interaction here, and this individual has not decided if they are buying or selling yet. So next, let's move into the P in LOPA, and this is a prospect. And so we move them from opportunity to prospect. And so when I actually move them from an opportunity to a prospect, basically they've made their decision that they are going to buy or sell, or I truly believe that they are looking to buy or sell. Sometimes we don't know with full certainty, but we have a pretty good understanding. So at this point in time, really what I want to be doing is I want to have them understand that I am the right person for the job. So really the sales hat is on here when they're in the prospect stage. Yes, I'm still delivering value. I'm trying to provide a high level of service. I'm trying to differentiate myself. And I also need to get face-to-face with them. So when they move from opportunity to prospect tends to be when we move into the buyer presentation or the listing presentation. So I need to be face-to-face. I need to be talking with them about their goals and their criteria and what they're looking to achieve here. So I need to have some presentation once they move into the prospect stage, because at this stage, they are decided that they're going to move. However, they haven't necessarily decided on their agent yet. And so this is why we need to be staying in close contact with them. And so at a minimum, I'm looking to stay in touch with them once a week here. And I'm providing them with very focused information. I'm not just generally sending them market data for the whole city. I'm getting a lot more specific on what it is that they're looking for. And I'm showing them market data, I'm making introductions, and I'm also matching properties to them, whether they're a buyer or a seller. So what happens after they're a prospect? Well, after they're a prospect, they sign something with me, or they give me the indication that they are going to use me to buy or sell real estate. And then I move them over into the active stage. So the active stage is an interesting one because up until now, we've been marketing to them and then we've been providing value and we've been actually selling to them. And we're really trying to sell ourselves as we're moving up to the active stage. As soon as they cross over into active, so now they're out there looking at homes with you, or they've said, hey, we're going to list with you. At this point in time, now I really need to be providing a very high level of service. So right off the bat, as soon as we move them into active, we should be turning ourselves into a customer service representative. And we need to be thinking highest level of service. So typically when somebody moves into the active stage, the first place my mind goes is what small gift can I provide them? They have now trusted me to help them with their transaction. No, the transaction is not done yet, but they have trusted me. And so at this point in time, I want to reward them for that. And then I also want to be providing them with an extremely high level of service. So again, my contact frequency when they're active is weekly, and this is one-to-one. So I'm trying to have a lot of one-to-one conversations with them, and I'm showing them how we're going to do this together. Because at this point in time, they have now selected me, and now it's time to provide them with an extremely high level of service. And this is very key in this stage. The final thing about the active stage is we also have them on an MLS feed. So they're receiving sales and they're receiving listings. Now, if they're a buyer or a seller, it doesn't necessarily matter to me. If they're a buyer, they need to see new listings, but they also should be seeing sales so they can see where does a property actually trade. So what's the difference between a list price and a sale price? Same goes for a seller. Just so they can have an understanding of this is what's coming on. So here's our active competition, and then here's what's selling. So here's our sold competition. And this is extremely helpful. So I know when they're in the active stage, they should be on some level of an MLS feed with me. So that's LOPA. That gets us to the active stage. At this point in time, they've now written an offer, it's been accepted. So now they're under contract, so I'm moving them into the pending stage. Now in the pending stage, we also need to be providing a very high level of service. So again, my main focus when active and when pending is customer service. How can I ensure that this person is having a great experience? And that is what I'm operating on when I'm thinking through what do I do next with this client? What would somebody who's providing the extremely high level of service that I'm providing, what would they do? And that's really my mindset. When they are pending, I'd like to stay in touch with them 3 times a week. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that I am calling them 3 times a week. Maybe I'm out there and I saw them or I help them with a lender. All I want is I want a reminder 3 times a week that have I been in touch with this person? Now, there's a lot of moving pieces. There's a lot of thoughts going through a client's mind during this conditional period. So it's key that we are very responsive and we're answering their questions, but we're also outwardly asking them questions. One thing to keep in mind is if a client ever reaches out to you, unless they have a question, if they're reaching out to you for an update, then we're actually failing them. And that's an important concept to keep in mind. We do not want to be failing our clients. And if they're reaching out to us asking for any level of an update, that means we're not doing our job because we haven't updated them first. Okay, so at this point in time, the buyer has waived their contingencies. The deal is now firm and we're waiting on closing or possession. Well, at this point in time, I really want to be demonstrating value, but I also want to be providing a high level of service. So I don't want them to think that as soon as the deal is firm, I'm gone. So I want to be staying in touch with them. Now, it depends on how far out their closing is. I'm in touch with them every couple of weeks, wondering how their move's going. How's packing going? Do they need any help with anything? Do they need any introductions? They're oftentimes very excited. They're excited about their move. They're thinking about their move and they're telling all their family and friends. And so if we lose touch with them at this key moment, we could be losing potential referrals because this is where their mind is excited. They cannot wait to move into that new home. And so your name tends to come up a lot more frequently in that stage. So keep that in mind that a lot of referrals will come your way between pending and possession. So what happens after possession has occurred? Well, at this point in time, they move into a certain bucket. And I tend to have a few buckets that I will move people into. For the most part, though, I want to move them into my SOI A. And SOI, or Sphere of Influence A, are people that I want to stay in touch with on a regular basis. Maybe I had a great transaction. Maybe we really hit it off. Maybe they send us a lot of referrals. Maybe they've transacted a number of times. And so I really want people to be in my SOIA. And what they're getting here is they're getting my monthly email newsletter. They're also all on market reports for their community. So I'm sending them monthly what's happening with sales and new listings in their community. Both of those are automated, so not a lot of work. We're automating that. But the other thing is at least once a quarter, I want to see them or talk to these people. I need to have some sort of one-to-one communication with my SOIA at least once a quarter. And so there's a reminder in my CRM once a quarter, have you followed up? And if not, then I'm giving them a call or I'm inviting them out for lunch, I'm inviting for coffee. I'm wanting to get face-to-face with this person. So what's the main focus of our SOIA? So remember off the start, we were marketing and we were selling, and then we were really focused on customer service. What are we focused on now? Well, what we should be focused on is turning this person into a friend. So we really want to be thinking friendship at this point in time. How would a friend talk to a friend? What would we actually do in order to stay in touch with that friend? And if we operate with that mindset, we'll form this amazing bond with our SOI, especially our SOIA. So we really want to be thinking about friendship here. And that should be really the guiding light for how we go about taking care of our clients in the SOIA. Now, when they're in the SOIA stage, they could be there for 10 years. So we do need some automation, and that's email newsletters and market reports. But we also want to ensure that we have this one-to-one communication at least once a quarter with these people. Next, we have our SOIB. And now our SOIBs are not necessarily people that won't send us our referrals or people where we didn't have a good transaction. It's just people who we're less likely to reach out to on a quarterly basis. If a person falls into that, that is perfectly fine. In fact, most people's databases will be mostly SOIB. But what we want to do is move those people into SOIA. So again, we're thinking friendship. We are thinking, hey, when can we reach out to this person in a natural way? We're potentially reaching out to them once, maybe twice a year, could be more. But if we're reaching out to them more than that, then they should really be in our SOIA. And we're really leaning into our automation here. So we're leaning into our monthly newsletters as well as our market reports. So those are automated and they're going out. So that's our SOIA and our SOIB. Now, what happens though if somebody doesn't fall into these categories? Well, the next category I have after that is the archive. And the archive doesn't necessarily mean that this lead was not a good lead or we didn't get along. Instead, it's somebody who potentially may not be the best fit for me moving forward. Maybe we had a transaction, but we're just not as interested in staying in touch with that individual person. That's perfectly fine. That's part of business. I don't want to remove this person from my database. This person could also send some referrals, so I want to make sure that they are still receiving their market reports and they're also receiving my monthly newsletter. And then on top of that, though, I'm just not reaching out on a regular basis. I'm not actually outwardly reaching out to these individuals. So in an ideal world, this group is actually relatively small. And they move eventually from archive. Maybe they come back into our pipeline as an opportunity, and then they come out the other end and they could end up being SOIA. So that is perfectly fine. And people can kind of shift around. Oftentimes we think of dropping people into a bucket and leaving them. And that's not always the case. Maybe we meet up with them down the road and we realize, hey, this is a great person. I'd love to stay in closer touch with this person. So I'm going to follow up with them more regularly and move them into SOIA. The final stage when it comes to clients is dead leads. And so dead leads is completely different. Instead of an archive where, yes, they are still receiving some information from me, but I'm not outwardly reaching out, the dead leads, there's no communication. So maybe they went another direction. Maybe they're using a different realtor. Maybe we did not have a great transaction and this is somebody who I'd prefer to not stay in touch with. So I'm actively putting them into the dead lead file. Now, that being said, also these can be people who's registered on my website, but just have not reached out and we have not connected in over a year. then they'll automatically be moved into dead leads. And so a dead lead is really somebody who we don't want to delete from our database, but theoretically could. Like, we really don't have much intention of reaching out to these people at all. Instead, they're just staying here so that we have a record of them. And that's really what the dead lead stage is for. Finally, we have our service providers. So these people don't really fall into any category. They are lawyers, they're lenders, they're title companies, they're people that we will use, they're stagers, they're service providers that help our business. So I will put all of those people into my service provider bucket. Now, am I following up with these people? Well, in fact, yes. I want these people to opt in to receive my monthly newsletter, and I want to stay in touch with them because they could all be looking to buy and sell real estate as well. That being said, I do not prioritize my communication with them, meaning that if I had to choose between going for lunch with an SOIA and a service provider, I'm going to choose SOIA all day long because that is an individual who A, has transacted very likely or will, and also knows a lot of people by way of referrals. As far as the service providers are concerned, I will still definitely stay in touch, and I definitely want to have them being part of my network because they could also have people that are looking to buy or sell, but I also just want to have their information handy so I can very easily make introductions to my SOI or to people that are in my funnel in different stages. And so when we're thinking about our real estate funnel, it's really a flywheel effect where people will go through our sales funnel, they'll come out, and then they'll sit in their SOI. And so really what we want are people sitting in our SOIA, and yes, some will sit in our SOIB, we'll have some in archive, we'll have some dead leads, we'll have our service providers, and then once they've actually raised their hand, or we've noticed signs that they may be looking to move, then I move them back up into opportunity, prospect, active. If it's somebody who's registered on my website and we actually haven't had any back and forth communication yet, as in they have not responded to me, then they're always sitting in the lead stage, and I'm very much leaning into automation for that. And then as they start to move through, I'm using less automation. So final thing, as a reminder, we have our LOPA, we have our lead, we have opportunity, we have prospect, and we have active. And up until active, we're really trying to work on our marketing and our sales skills. Then when they're active, we're not looking to sell them on anything. We're just trying to help them have a very good experience. So active and pending, we really want to ensure that they're focused on customer service as well as before possession. And then finally, we want to focus on friendship. Is how can we turn these past clients, these SOI folks, into actual friends? And if we focus on that, that's where referrals will really start to pour in. Thank you very much for watching this if you're on YouTube, or listening to this if you are catching the podcast. I really appreciate it. Remember, you can reach out to me anytime. I'm on Instagram at the.michael.montgomery, or you can head over to revrealestateschool.com. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next lesson.